Thanks for coming. The Calgary Police Service auto theft team has charged 6 individuals following the theft of a vehicle during a private sale test drive. On Wednesday, June 12th, 2019, at approximately 9:30 p.m., a woman attended a residence located in Copperfield to view a vehicle, a Toyota 4Runner, which was being sold privately through an online classified site. Approximately 15 minutes later, the owner of the vehicle accompanied the woman on a test drive of the 4Runner. Throughout the test drive, the victim noticed a Honda CR-V following his vehicle. The woman drove the vehicle outside of the city on Township Road 240 and pulled over near Rainbow Road, where she demanded the owner exit the vehicle. The Honda CR-V was still following the 4Runner, and fearing for his safety, the victim exited the vehicle. Both the 4Runner and the CR-V fled the area, leaving the victim on the side of the road. A short time later, police located both vehicles near an apartment located in the 200 block of 15th Avenue Southeast. Officers approached the CR-V and arrested 2 men and a woman. Police then entered the apartment building where the female driver of the 4Runner, as well as 2 other men, were arrested without incident. Upon further investigation, it was learned that the CR-V was also stolen from a citizen during a private sale test drive that occurred in Edgemont earlier. This was on Tuesday, May 21st, 2019. In that incident, suspects in a second vehicle rear-ended the CR-V during the test drive, and when the victim exited the vehicle to inspect the damage, both vehicles sped away. The following items were seized during searches related to the investigation: 40.1 grams of methamphetamine, 2 grams of fentanyl, various rounds of ammunition, and stolen identity documents. 6 individuals are now facing charges in relation to these incidents. Police would like to remind citizens of the following safety tips when conducting private sales of any kind. Arrange to meet in a public place with many people around that is in view of CCTV cameras. The Calgary Police Service encourages citizens to use buy and sell zones, for example, which have been designated in parking lot of each district office. If possible, have a friend or family member come with you. Speak with the buyer ahead of time and trust your gut. If their answers sound suspicious, they very likely are. Make arrangements for the test drive ahead of time. Decide on a route and ask to see identification prior to the handing over of any keys. And finally, make note of the vehicle that the buyer arrived in and anyone else in the vehicle at the time. These are just a few safety tips that we offer up. And with that, I'm more than happy to answer a few extra questions that you might have. Yeah, what we're seeing is that it is a little bit of a trend, and that is it's a crime of opportunity for criminals. So in the one thing that we're seeing is people renting vehicles and then not returning those vehicles. And while it's outstanding with the rental car company, the criminal is trying to sell it as theirs. So that's a trend that we're very mindful of, because those vehicles represent quite a bit of value. So you can see that when successful, when criminals, for example, give the vehicle a new identity, so a new VIN number, for example, they're able to turn that into a considerable amount of cash in some cases.
What do you make of sort of the means that they went to? I mean, it kind of sounds like a carjacking in a sense. I mean, what do you make of the level of intent?
It is a little bit like that in the sense, but what I would suggest is that it's perhaps a little bit more organized in advance. So what they're trying to do is eliminate the violence component, I suppose, and introduce instead an organized element of staging an event. So staging a minor collision, or staging essentially a test drive that they have no business truly wanting to test drive and purchase, and in fact they'd like to steal the vehicle. So what it does is it eliminates sort of that violence component that we might see, for example, in a carjacking.
There was a release, I think this week, from AirG RCMP had something similar where someone went onto a car lot and wanted to buy a car and then took off with one. Could that be connected at all? Is that something you guys are looking into, kind of whether or not these events are?
I'm not aware if the airdrie event is connected to this particular event, but with regards to car lots and dealerships, those are stakeholders that we deal with quite regularly, because similar type events can occur at these businesses as well. So people come and present fraudulent documentation in order to test drive a vehicle, and then say it might be as simple as not returning that vehicle. And so we have to do a lot of work with various businesses like that.
And is this a new type of thing, or is it ramping up at all?
We see it as a trend, absolutely, and that's why we wanted to bring it forward. It is there certainly is opportunity. We do work with the secondhand seller websites, for example, that do have security departments and can help us considerably with our investigations. I think they've noticed that the need to have that level of security with the business that they're conducting is absolutely necessary.
And I guess, like, should people stop selling their cars on Kijiji and stuff like that? Like, is it that bad? Or?
No, I don't think so. Right? It's not meant for us to sort of deliver that message. I think it's more about the buyer beware message. So probably the number one tip that I would have within that is if a deal is too good to be true. So if, for example, a newer vehicle is being sold at a value considerably less than, say, its black book value, or a value that consumers can research online, there's very likely a reason for why it's being sold so far below value, and it's well within the buyer's rights to, of course, ask questions about that. And when you feel pressure to say capitalize on that sale, a lot of times our buyers, our citizens, our safety and crime prevention are not at the forefront of their minds.
But I guess, like, from the seller's perspective, like, well, I mean, should they not be using this avenue to sell their cars? I mean, like,
Absolutely. Like, we're not here to diminish secondhand seller sites or what have you, and I think it's just a situation where vehicles in particular are very valuable. One vehicle presents a lot more value than say a number of small items on secondhand seller sites. So one sale, in this case by a criminal, has the potential to be very lucrative. So we certainly are just asking people to do their due diligence.
So was there kind of evidence that these people were, I guess, stealing cars and then using that for, like, drug money or something like that? Is that the connection here? Or can you spell that out?
Yeah, there's a number of connections that could be involved. It could be to commit other crimes, so they're using the vehicle to commit other crimes, other property crimes, for example, break-and-enters, robberies, and so on. It could be that they're simply looking to make the sale and then have the cash from that sale to, say, purchase drugs or use it for other criminality purposes. So it really is a variety of answers to your question, really.
You kind of touched on secondhand seller sites.
Yes.
But in these particular instances that we're talking about today,
Yes.
you got a handle on how the people were tracked down? Were they approached after this, the ads were seen on a site like Kijiji or something like that? Or did they just drive around the street till they saw a car for sale? I mean, how did they track these people? How did they find the vehicles?
They find them on the secondhand on site. So in this case, a citizen is trying to sell a vehicle, well within their rights to do so. But unbeknownst to them, it's a criminal with a criminal intent that is looking to, in fact, not purchase the vehicle and in fact steal it. So that's how it came about in this particular circumstance.
On one of the reseller sites like Kijiji, if not Kijiji?
That's correct. Yep, from a secondhand seller site, that's correct. But it could very well be from a magazine or whatever the case may be, or classified ads or whatever. I think what we're seeing is that just with technology, secondhand sales are very common, and we don't want to discourage those. We're just trying to encourage due diligence.
I guess what's the lesson there then for sellers? Like, I mean, maybe in speaking to these victims, were they like, oh, this guy seemed kind of cagey. I had some spidey sense that maybe I shouldn't be selling this guy. Get in a car with this woman. Like, how did that? Like,
Yep.
was there red flags, I guess?
Absolutely. So that's why some of the tips that we laid out at the beginning with regards to sort of asking for identification, maybe asking questions of the buyer as well as, you know, what, or notice, for example, that the buyer may not be asking questions. Why is that? Because it would be common for a diligent buyer to ask a number of questions, right, about service history and so on, and when those questions are not being asked. So we're really asking people to trust their instincts. And what we find is it's difficult because the mindset of seller a lot of times is to make a sale, and they're thinking about negotiation, and what they're not thinking about is safety and crime prevention. So.
And talking about safety, it sounds really scary.
Yes.
To get into a car with someone and that happened. And
Right.
There happened, I mean, there was a case in Hamilton, I don't know the details, but like someone was murdered. I guess, should people not test drive when they're doing it themselves? Like, is that a no-no?
No, I think a test drive of a vehicle that you'd like to purchase, whether that's at a dealership or from an individual, that's a very reasonable thing to do. I think it's more about the safeguards that we're trying to emphasize. As I said, it's common for people to be very focused on making the sale, and then as a result of that become less focused on safety. So things like having a second individual with you at all times. Or having another person in another vehicle follow along, for example, friend, family. Those are reasonable things. So.
And that light, I'll ask you, if I was buying your car, what would you do if I said, let's go for a test drive?
If you were buying my car and we were going to go for a test drive,
What would you do?
well, I think that I would have a plan in advance, that it wouldn't just be myself, for example, that would be involved in dealing with my potential salesperson, right? So I would involve family, whether that be also family, friends, what have you. That would be involved in the test drive itself, so the part where we actually drive away somewhere, and or the ability for, like I said, another person to follow in another vehicle. Those are reasonable things. I think that's probably the most common thing that we see citizens taking action in that way. But to suggest that people not take a test drive, like you would be very demanding. I'm not buying your vehicle until I have a test drive. We understand that. It's reasonable, right? It's just the safety precautions that go with it.
Do you see people using the district offices more and more for this kind of
Yes.
private sales? Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. So anywhere that features that element of a safe place, and certainly the presence of CCTV, of cameras, is a good element, right? So when you think about that, and criminals choosing to take action, they might be less inclined to commit their fraud or theft at a dealership, but more inclined to do that in suburbia with one particular person, right? So.
And just the fact that it's at a police station, they might not even show up if they're thinking of doing some fraudulent activity.
That is correct. Yeah, we've certainly seen that as well. Correct.